Hello, writers. I'm Josiane Fortin, and today I'm interviewing Amanda Steele. Amanda is the author of Ghost of Me, which was a finalist in the thriller category of the Author Elite Awards in 2020. And she co-hosts a book review podcast and works as a copywriter. Thank you so much, Amanda, for being with me today. And please start by telling us a little bit about you.
Okay, so I'm an author, copywriter, podcaster, book reviewer, and sometimes I like to go to sleep when I get time.
So you're interested in a lot of things, but all tied to writing, right?
Yeah.
And how many books have you self-published?
I've lost count, but I have a lot of short books, like poetry books and a couple of comedy books. And then I've got Ghost of Me and Not Human and a few other books. And I've started having them converted into audiobooks now as well. So that's been really exciting.
And the last book, you earned like an award for it. Like, what is the award? Like, where did you learn about it? Like, why did you win it? Let us know everything about it.
So it's you nominate yourself, but you've got to get votes. And I put my book in there, and I thought, well, I'm not going to start pestering people for votes because I don't like doing that. But it might be good publicity and get a few more sales. And then without even asking people for votes, it somehow managed to get into the top 10. So then I've been going around people trying to get votes to win the prize, which is like a publicity package. So hopefully, I think it's the 23rd of October when they pick the winners of each category. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Awesome. So is it like your finalist in the thriller category and they'll pick just one in that category?
Yeah, there's 16 different categories and they pick one in each category, and then all those 16 winners get this publicity package, which is more than I can afford at the moment. So I think most indie authors are struggling.
Hopefully you get it.
Yeah.
And so you've written a lot of books, but what got you to write the first one? Why were you excited to be a writer?
So I've always written since I was a child. I remember trying to rewrite fairy tales when I was about 5 or 6 and coming up with my own versions of them. And then just one thing led to another when I was older, and ended up doing a creative writing degree. And that led me then to start writing my first book.
And what was your inspiration for the latest book, Ghost of Me? How did you think about writing a theme like that? Like, you could tell us a little bit what it's about. Like, I read the description, but share with our listeners what it is and what was the inspiration for that book.
So I started writing that about 7 years ago, and it's one of the things that I just left and didn't come back to until recently. And then I went back to it, and it was originally based on what I was like back then, but obviously I've changed now, so it's a completely different person to me now. And it's this woman, and she's not had much of a life, and everything that she thinks in her life about the people, she thinks that they value her higher than what she really is. So she finds out after she's died that her relationship with her fiance isn't what it seems, and she's seen herself in the morgue, so she knows she's a ghost. So she's trying to solve her own murder, and she's just discovering what people really think about her, which is different to what they say to your face when you're alive.
Yeah, but why did you want to write about this?
It's just one of the random thoughts that came into my head, like what would I do if I found my dead body in the morgue, and how would I stop myself from freaking out? I think writers just have all sorts of random ideas, and normal people just don't even think of that kind of thing.
And how long did it take you to write this book?
So when I went back to it, I think it took between 6 and 8 months, and I was doing the creative writing MA at the time. So I used it as part of that coursework, and I got a lot of really good feedback from the other students and the tutor, so I think that helped.
And what advice would you give to someone looking to write their first book? Because you've been writing for quite a few years now, and I'm curious to know, what would you tell them?
I just say read a lot, both good and bad books, just to find out what works and what doesn't, and just try to mix with other writers, because I know it can be quite solitary sometimes. And if you just like the spoken word nights and things that I go to, and you can find things out. I mean, obviously not at the moment because there's not much running, but there's things going on online as well. And just try to learn as much as you can, even if it's not a course, just try to learn from someone.
Do you think people need to go to school to have formal education to become a writer?
No, you need to learn from somewhere, but it doesn't have to be formal education. You can learn from other people and from books and free online courses and groups, and we're doing a workshop at the moment as well, so we're just passing on what we've learned from other people. That's me and my partner, because he's a writer as well.
And so on your podcast, you do some critiques of other people's book. Like, how is it? Do you talk with someone else, or is it like you're just sharing your own personal feeling about the book? What is the podcast?
I co-host it with my partner, and we usually have a couple of books that are different from each other, and then we might have one or two that we've read that's the same book, and we'll discuss it. And if it's one that we've not read, then the other one will ask questions about it.
How long have you been doing that?
Nearly 3 years now. When
Okay.
we started it, we didn't know how long it was going to go on, and now we're just realising that it's coming up to 3 years.
Oh.
And I've started doing like a little spin-off podcast from that called Reading in Bed Extracts. So mostly indie authors will get in touch with me, and I'll read between 5 and 10 minutes. And then it saves them having to keep reading all over again, because they're used to publicising it and they're sick of reading the same bit over and over again.
What would you say is the hardest thing about becoming a self-published author?
For me, I think it's the marketing, because I do things to market myself, but I do find it much easier to market other people.
Yeah, like you were saying, for the award, you needed to get some votes, and you didn't want to ask for votes.
Yeah.
So you didn't feel comfortable like going and asking people for votes.
Not for when I first nominated myself, because there wasn't really, I didn't think there was any chance of me getting very far with it. But when I was thinking, well, people have actually voted me this far, so now I'm going to ask people I know to
Now
just
it's
try
worth
and
it,
help
right?
me. Yeah.
You just want to get the prize. And so, like, the marketing, how do you promote your books right now? Do you have a website? Do you have Facebook page? What do you do?
I've got a website. I've got all sorts of things on there. It's like a little sort of mini treasure thing with like all little bits and pieces all over the place. And I've also got a Facebook page and Twitter, and sometimes I'll post things on Facebook as well. But I know a lot of places, if you want to get it published somewhere afterwards, and you can't really do that because they class it as published sometimes.
Yeah. Did you self-publish on Amazon or on other platforms?
I started on Amazon, and I went over to Draft to Digital because I just like the idea of having it in different places. So they just send it everywhere, and half the places on there I'd never even heard of, so I wouldn't even known to go to them in the first place.
Yeah, I love that about Amazon, is that sometimes you will randomly sell some book in Japan or like another country that I wish I could go to Japan, but I've never been. But at least one of my book has been to Japan. So
Yeah. Or if you sell enough, they might want you to go to Japan to read the book.
that would be awesome. That's the next trip I'm taking after the pandemic, for sure. I'm flying to Tokyo. And what other projects are you working on right now?
So I've got a trilogy in the young adult series, because I originally had the first one published with a Canadian publisher, but they've closed down now. I think they were struggling anyway, and then with the pandemic, they just couldn't stay open anymore. So then I just quickly bought the second one out, and I'm bringing the third one out at the end of the year. And we're just doing the workshops that I mentioned as well. So we're like try to support other writers as much as we can.
That's fun. And if people want to know more about the workshop, about your books, about what your podcast, where can they connect with you?
So there's the website, which is amandasteelewriter.com. And then there's the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Amanda Steele Writer.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda, for being on the podcast. It was so much fun talking to you.
Yeah, thanks.